tend to go away and say, well, I need to get this. All right, so today we have with us a very special guest, someone who I've been tracking, maybe stalking on social media. I have with us Damion Whyte, and Damion Whyte has been someone I've seen on social media. He has been sharing his passion, working in the field as an environmentalist, as a biologist. He's a student at the University of the West Indies, where he's pursuing his PhD. I'll let him tell you a little bit more about that and what he's researching. He's also a past student of Glenmuir, a school which I have very, very good friends, very, very good friends from that school. And so I don't want to tell his story too much, but what I can say is that if you know Damion, you'll see that he's someone who's full of life, someone who loves to speak about the things that he's passionate about. He is willing to share his story, and is someone who certainly believes that there is an awareness that is missing about the species that are in Jamaica, and maybe believes strongly that more should be done to let students and people of Jamaica know about it. So without trying to tell his story for him, that's why we have him, I'd like to welcome Damion Whyte to the panel. Damion, welcome.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Everybody might know me on social media as Rooster, but tonight I'm Damion.
Yes, and appropriately called Rooster. Yeah. How you end up with a name like Rooster?
Oh boy, it's all started on the University of the West Indies, Some call it country boy who now come to town and come to UA. So going on one of the hall, Preston Hall, everybody always get a name when you're going to live on hall. Yeah. So I used to talk a lot and chat on. So one of the seniors looked at me and said, boy, this boy look like a rooster. And on hall at the University of the West Indies always have some interesting connotation with the name, the meaning. So since I'm behaving myself, it was rooster meant something that you need a big rooster to wake you up early in the morning.
Yes, so yes.
Very creative way of using it.
I don't want to delve into that, but I think I'm leaving that to the imaginations of the. So tell us a little bit about you. You mentioned Preston Hall, but tell us a little bit about you prior to coming to the University of the West Indies. A little bit about where you grew up, schools you attended, and stuff like that.
Okay, well, all right. So I should say I was born in Kingston. Surprisingly, my mother came from St. Mary and my father come from St. Elizabeth, those two parishes. Meet in Kingston and then moved to Clarendon into a community called Little Faith Drive, Sandy Bay. So there I don't have no family or that, so we're moving there. So growing up now, I grew on what you call a small farm. So I had pigs, chicken, goats, and my neighbor had cows. And growing up in the rural area, before you go to school, you have to tie out your goat, make sure your goat's all right, and even go check on the neighbor cow. So I grew up around animals. And then from there, I went to one of the traditional high school in Clarendon named Glenmuir High School. And at Glenmuir High School now, I decided I said, I wanted to do what? Medicine, because at those time at the high school, I'm telling you, the only good profession you can become is either teacher, lawyer, policeman, and doctor. And then early I discovered that was not for me. But then one of the next thing about it is that every summer I used to go in St. Mary and stay with my grandparents, my grandfather and grandmother. No, my grandfather had a love for animals. I would get up every morning early in the morning when I make this nice chocolate tea. The one where they make with wood fire. They call the oil on top of it. Hot, nice chocolate tea.
Yes,
and then he would go out early to the farm. He would look after the chickens. He had pet birds. The birds would fly on them cap, and he and the birds, they having big conversation. He cuss them, tell them that they did the bad thing, and they would fly. So he always had this relationship with animals, and he taught us how to respect them. We had to look after them. We couldn't sleep if one of the animals were out. So I have this tight thing with my grandfather, who I think had a love. And then my parents now had a farm, and growing up, I had that responsibility to look after the goat and make sure everything. So I would say that background that I have, country boy, that I would never give one day up, where I love so much. brought me to this place where I have a special love for animals. And one of the key things my mother always tell me is that before when I was born, she used to have a beautiful flower garden, and she had this boy who would go there, mommy, pretty flowers, grab it, no more flowers.
And
So she would
destroy the
always
flowers.
remember. Yeah, man, but me always I grab flowers for sure. So yeah, I had this incline for nature there.
Just out of curiosity, where in St. Mary is that your country, you say?
Okay. All right. There's a place that they call Martin. It's between
Wow.
Port Maria and Highgate. So Port Maria is the
Yeah.
capital of St. Mary. And Highgate
Yeah.
is one of the big towns that we used to make Highgate chocolate. So it's a
Yeah.
small community called Martin. Could get up and
Yes.
pick mango and pear. Nice, man.
What if I told that I lived in Martin?
Are you serious? That means I might know my Uncle Stewie.
Quite possibly. I lived in Martin for a while, actually, and I have family in Martin because I used to attend St. Mary High School, and I used to walk from Martin to school. Yeah.
Don't tell me that you know my brother Denzel Whyte, because I used to do that. Denzel doing. He normally used to walk from he do that same walk too.
Yeah. My family lived right in Martin, right in the center of Martin, to be honest, you know. But we can but that connection, there's clearly a connection, and you'll know my family if you have any. Maybe because you visit, you might not know them very well, because that's a different thing. But certainly we are 1 degree, 1 degree away from connecting there. So you finish off Glenmuir, yeah, and you went to the University of the West Indies, yeah,
right.
and that's where. So clearly, you went to the university to study. What did you go to study, and at what point did you decide that you're going to become a biologist? Because as you mentioned in your earlier introduction, you said everybody wanted to be doctors and all that. But at what point you kind of know that, biologist or whatever you decide, environmentalist, at what point did that become more apparent that this is the journey you're going to be on?
All right. So when I reached university, I did not get through for medicine. So when you go in the faculty, you had to do some courses. And that was like, I was doing maths, the general stuff, maths, bio, and chemistry. That was the courses to get you in medicine. But then up there, I had friends who were doing medicine. I did not like cut. I don't like vomit. I'm afraid of blood. I don't like injection. You put all of that together, what kind of doctor would I make if I can't stand all of that? So in one of my biologist class, we had the head of department at the time. That was Dr. Steele, who came in and said, "Me chat too much, I have too much energy." And he looked at me that day and said he can find something for me to do, because all we do is talk. And he brought me to an NGO, which was BirdLife Jamaica. And that's where my whole life turned around in first year. So working with this NGO now, I was introduced to birds. There was this lady named Catherine Levy, who was the head of it, who was big in environmental grouping. And then after that, I met one of my professors, who I might talk about, that was Professor Dr. Vogel. So it was during that first year when I was introduced to that NGO that turned my life into the life of biology. Because growing up in a rural school, they didn't talk about other professions. I didn't know about environmentalists or stuff like that. And if I think about a scientist or somebody who I see on TV, I didn't see local stuff like that. So it was at the university, and I remember going in that room, they showed me some pictures of some bird, and I that's in Jamaica, and them say, yes, of some cuckoos, which was pretty big. I've never seen one up close. So that's the direction. I would say if Dr. Steele didn't take me that day, because I love a lot of energy and me chat and get trouble, if he didn't put me in that direction, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you.
Yeah, powerful. So in that sense, would you credit your movement towards this to Dr. Steele, or are there any other influences as well?
There's so many influences that I can talk about, but the introduction, I would say Dr. Steele was the one who brought me there, but then BirdLife Jamaica, I would say, play a big role in the biologist that I am today. And when you check BirdLife Jamaica, you had some people that have passed, like my mentor, Dr. Vogue, who taught me about herbs, birds, and all of that. Sadly, he passed when I was doing my master's. And then I had a fellow student, Marlon Beale, who also passed. He was a PhD student. All of us working together. You have people like Hurlitz Davis, Dr. Leah Douglas. All of us there were like young students together doing work. A number of people have graduated, but BirdLife focused all of us there, and then that played a part in guiding my life to in what I should say in biology or in environment. I mean, if I never got that level of mentorship or that direction, I would not be here.
Yeah. Tell me, when I was much younger, as you mentioned BirdLife, I'm wondering if this is BirdLife or maybe it's a different part of Jamaica. But when we were younger, I used to remember I used to live in a place called Coleraine. And it used to be like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Maybe these are not BirdLife people. I might be getting myself in trouble now. But they used to come at about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and they used to shoot birds. Maybe they are not BirdLife people, now that I think about it. But there was a group of people who used to come early in the morning, and we as young kids were paid to go and find the birds that they shot. And so maybe it's a conversation as a biologist. I mean, this is a practice that used to happen, and they used to come and they shoot. There were these massive flocks of birds that used to fly across the ocean, just on the seaside. And I'm sure you might be aware of the practice, and are there any thoughts about that as a practice? But no, I remember it was fun. But now that you're speaking about bird life, and so do you know of this practice and what are the thoughts?
Yeah, I know about the practice, and I know what you're talking because I normally monitor. So what you're talking about, I know what people might think that being a part of an NGO like BirdLife Jamaica, I would have conflicts with hunters and bird shooting. But if it's being regulated, I don't have a big problem. Because, for example, in the US and even here, the hunters play a big role in protecting the environment in terms that if they don't protect the birds' habitat, they won't have any birds to shoot. While some people might have it's cruel to shoot birds or whatever. But we have they have worked out what I should say a quota that you can hunt. I am not here to debate whether you can hunt or not, but as I said, the hunters play a role, just like us as bird watchers play a role. I have, in growing up in the environmental world, I should say, I remember working for a National Environmental Planning Agency during bird shooting season, where I go out and monitor the hunters, and I learned a lot from these hunters. And as I told you, some of the best protected areas that we have now in Jamaica are managed by gun clubs. But there's always a thin line where people talk about it.
And certainly the legislation around that might be something that can be looked at some point. But as you're saying that, for you, you're saying that there's a symbiotic relationship in the sense that they know that if they don't protect the habitats, they themselves would not have the hunting.
Right. Yes, and when they protect the game birds, it protects other birds. So the spin-off is good. So there are both positive and negatives in it.
Yeah, for me as a child growing up, I was surprised that there were so many different types of birds in Jamaica. You're kind of not aware of the diversity. And when they were shooting and they get just one on that type and that type and the flocks that we used to see, I was surprised because in the early morning. So for me, but tell me, so you're doing research, because I know you mentioned yourself as a PhD student. Tell us a little bit about your research, and so we can center the conversation about your area of interest. What's your research? What are you researching and where are you in that process? Yeah.
All right. So my research part. So I had a first degree at the university, and then I did a master's. My master's was looking at the effect of bird predation on arthropods on coffee grown under different management. Basically, what he was doing is looking and see if bird control coffee pests. So you have different. In the Blue Mountains now, you have two farm management. You have the traditional way that people grow it, what they call shade coffee. So you have mixture, all sorts of plants. So when the coffee not out, you can reap your mango, you can reap the bananas. And when you have such a diversity, you have a lot of different species of birds there. versus to what we call the monoculture now, or sun coffee, where you chop down all of those trees and you only grow coffee. Problems with that now, you have lesser birds there and you use a lot of insecticide to control pests, and pests normally hit you more. So my study was trying to promote, to look and see if you have more birds coming on the coffee tree. So if you grow it the traditional way, you get more birds, and they control the pests. The only problem is you get lesser yield than the monoculture, but on the long run, it is more sustainable. So that was my master's.
What did you find out in that research? What was the outcome of that research?
The outcome of that research is that the birds did play a role. First thing, the coffee farms that had to grow coffee the traditional way, you had a lot of diversity there. In terms of you have a lot of birds, you have predators like spiders and a lot of wasps and all of that would attack the pests. Compared to the sun coffee now that had no trees except coffee. So you didn't really have trees. Some birds like to be in a tall tree. So because of that tree gone, you don't have the birds. Because of that tree gone, you don't have the diversity of wasps and spiders. And the end product is that you use a lot more pesticides. And sometimes some of these chemicals show up in the coffee. That's what the studies worldwide. So there's a big movement now to grow bird-friendly coffee.
So it's like create like an ecosystem that a food chain system, like a food chain that the birds eat the pests and the pests, and there's that kind of
So you have the spider there that might get some of the insect, the bird might eat some of the spider, or the wasp might. So if you take out some of the tree, you might take out the tree where the spider would spin its web, and it's all big web going around. So it becomes very complex.
So it's a managed.
So the studies show that that we encourage people to grow coffee like that, and it also helps the farmer, because remember, when you grow just only coffee, it's only one time a year you get money. But if you go the traditional way, when the coffee out, you can be picking mango selling, you can be selling bananas or something like that. So it's very sustainable, and that's where we have to move now in the world, especially with climate change and all the problems going on. And then now I move on. Oh, sorry.
No, carry on. I have a follow-up, but carry on.
And then I move on now to my PhD now, where my PhD now is the evaluation of Goat Island for the introduction of the Jamaica iguana. So the Jamaica iguana now, when in school, a number of people learned that the Jamaica iguana was extinct. And we found the last record we have of the Jamaica iguana was on Goat Island in 1940s. When they were building the American base, they removed the last set and they moved them in Kingston, and they all died. And then and so we had it in the book, so they're extinct. But in 1990s, or 91 to be exact, a wild pig hunter was out there and he brought back an iguana. And then this started off the Jamaica Iguana Recovery Program, where everybody thought this was extinct. And we have been doing a lot of work to get the iguana back. However, with all the work that we're doing in the Hellshire Hills, the iguanas are found in the Hellshire Hills currently. But we have a lot of invasives out there, like cats, dogs, mongoose, and pigs that are destroying their eggs and harming them. So if we are not out there trapping them, they will get extinct again, because most of these stuff prey on the babies. So now I am looking at Great Goat Island, which was as I said, in the 1940s, they used to live there. But the place has changed a lot. So my PhD now is to look at the island and see if we can, when we bring back the iguana, if it is good enough for them to live. That's in terms of nesting, food. So if all the resources they need for survival is okay. So that's what my about.
Okay, so you're let me understand that now for the person on the outside looking in and thinking, okay, what is he doing? Because there are some important pieces that are coming out of this. So just to recap, you're saying that the iguana used to be living on the Goat Island. And due to the fact that they were creating a base there, that was one of the casualties of that decision. Or is it a case where it wasn't Was that a deliberate decision to remove them, or was it a case that they just lost? They didn't have a habitat anymore.
Well, the thing is, there's 2 points to it. So it wasn't the base alone that had the problem. We had a lot of invasives over there.
Yeah.
So the same cat mongoose that was giving problem on the mainland is also on the islands, and they played a big role. But the final, what I should say, point of destruction,
nail in the coffin,
or the nail in the coffin, was the base. Because now you have a base, now you have a lot of people there. So you have 2 islands. You have Little and Great Goat Island. So when the base come on, all of the iguanas and Little Goat Island were off, and we had a few on Great Goat Island. So with the invasive there, after a while, all of them died out. So right now, all we just do now, I check to see if the place is all right for them to live.
And so you're checking. Are you checking to see? So you're certainly trying to understand the habitat of the Jamaican iguana and trying to ensure that all that is necessary, or are you thinking of synthetic things to do to maintain their survival?
Well, I am starting the first one that I said before it was synthetic. So for example, so 4 major things over there that are looking that I can summarize. So we know that invasive species, that the cat and the mongoose are major. So we call them invasive. So we know we have to deal with them. They are there. So that's one nail in the coffin there. Next one, we in the, what I should say, in dry forest where we find the iguana, a little bit of soil is found there, and most of the areas that have soil, traditionally people use it to make charcoal skin, to burn coal, charcoal.
Oh wow!
So that's a limited factor because they need that area to nest. So I have to look and see if they have nests. So we look at invasive nests and we check and see if they have food. That is certain plants. And after we find those 3, then we know that everything is good for them. The others can fall in, but those are the 3 major. And the main one over there we're talking about are the invasive, because they are the one that led to the extinction. So most time over there I set up camera to see how much like cat and them's up there. And somebody say, really, that over there count? But yeah, that's part of the life of a biologist.
That is interesting because that's what drew me to your social media post. And I think the first thing I saw you did on social media was doing something like a moth camera or something like that. Something to that effect. And I was like, what's this? What's this guy doing, talking about setting up cameras and all of that. And it really fascinated me that, people were doing stuff like this, because I am in the international scene and the environment is a big thing. But I don't remember the environment being a big thing back in Jamaica. If it was within a certain sector of the community. No, you just described when you say cat, I'm thinking it's a domesticated cat. You're talking as an invasive species. And I'm thinking that the cat, when I know them, if I remember, are quite small. And if I think of an iguana, help me with some perspective here about the size of the Jamaican iguana and the relationship between the cat and the iguana and why both cannot exist together. Tell me. All right.
Okay. So on Goat Island, when we had the problem when leading to extinction now. So so we have 2 big predators out there that go after them. That would be the cat and the mongoose. But they are not really big in size. And iguana, the largest iguana that we can measure, that is from head to tail, can measure up to 6 feet. While some are but between 3 and 4 feet, you normally see. But here the thing is, it's not the only animal that can get an adult iguana would be a dog. That can get. So when you reach adult, it's right. The problem is when they're from eggs to hatchling, the baby iguana. Now that's the one now that the baby iguana would be like a normal lizard, the size of a lizard.
Yeah.
So if you eat all the babies, then there won't be any adult. And that's where the problem starts. So the mongoose is good at going. So what happened is, I didn't mention. So the iguanas nest 2 ways. You have which is the main one where most of them migrate every year to this central area. You remember I tell you about a little bit of soil?
Yeah.
So they migrate to these areas that have a little bit of soil that they call a communal nest. And all of them lay their eggs there. Right? And then they go back in the wild. So what invasive do now, like the cat and the mongoose. The mongoose will go now, dig up the eggs and eat it. And maybe the wild pig will go there and dig up the eggs and eat it, because that's what they do. Now the cat now, when the eggs hatch, they're like small lizards. The cat will go there and eat them up. So imagine every generation there is no babies replenishing the population. After a while they get old and die. So that's the problem with it. So one of the interesting things now how the cats get over there is that sometimes the fishermen say them have a thief in cat, or Jamaica thief in puss. A cat that is taking out of their stuff at the yard. And what they believe to do, because they want to get rid of the cat, they release it in the wild or they release it on the island and think, oh, they are doing a good job. But the cat is a predator. And when it reaches there, what it do? Eat iguana babies, eat birds, and eat the native lizards. So that's one of the things the cats do. Right. And guess what, Jamaica? We have a lot of stuff that are only found in Jamaica.
Wow.
That didn't evolve to deal with these predators. So that's a big problem. And a lot of Jamaicans don't know that.
Yeah. But so you've described a very simple scenario, because when you think about biology and environmental, you're thinking, extinction, and it's some, it is maybe we're thinking of habitats changing and those things. But you've described a simple injection of something, a natural kind of behavior of Jamaicans would say, all right, we are going to cut some wood to make coal, yeah, or we are going to get rid of this cat that is creating a problem. We're just going to drop him off at this island when you go over there, and they drop him off, not realizing that they're not understanding. And suppose I myself, I must say, didn't understand the biology of that, because when you first described the invasive species and the impact that this species has on the iguana, I'm like, how can a cat that I remember have an impact? But what you have described here is more the nature of how species can interact, and just the natural behavior of the iguana has left itself vulnerable to a simple predator, not even a predator, not necessarily a predator, but just the natural, their lifestyle is now, in fact, their generations have been removed by simply being their own natural self. So that's why I see you doing stuff around nesting. And so I suppose you may be looking at protecting the nesting areas, ensuring that cats cannot enter it. But I'm one, yeah.
So there's twofold to it. One thing I should mention to you with science, we scientists at times, we love to use jargons and pretty fancy words.
Yes.
Explain some stuff that can be very simple. So when you use like habitat change, I mean, hearing it first, it sounds big, but when you look at it practically, it's some simple stuff, It's very. But going back to what you're saying now, when I mentioned to you part of my study, nesting. So on the mainland, where we have the only remnant wild population of iguanas, where we spend a lot of money. So every year, so two things we have to protect. We have to protect the nesting sites. So we know that's where the animal become very vulnerable. So we protect the nest. So what happens is when the eggs hatch, we know the nesting season, remove some of the eggs, the hatchlings, that are the baby iguanas, carry them to Hope Zoo and keep them there maybe up to 3 to 5 years until they reach a certain size. You remember I tell you, when they reach a certain size, the cat can't get them, the mongoose can't get them. The only possible predator there that's not there is dogs. They can rip apart a lot. So we have to control those predators. And the second thing, you remember I mentioned a point that soil is limited in the dry forest. So the nesting areas now, another thing that we have to do now is we have to create more nesting area, because the project that we are doing in bringing back iguanas to the wild, they need more nesting areas. We have tried to make some nesting areas before and it never worked out. So part of my study is to find out what make a good iguana nest. So that's why sometimes you see me out there measuring and doing all sorts of stuff.
And digging into the soil and checking.
Right.
So you mentioned that, so that we're talking about the iguana, and the first thing going through my head, big lizard. And Jamaicans don't really like small lizards. So why are you interested as a biologist in protecting the Jamaican iguana? And why do you feel anyone would be interested in you know, why should they be interested in helping you to do this?
Okay, so the first thing is, I like lizards. I like animals, period. So I like the crocodile, or the iguana, and stuff like that. My mother is afraid of the smallest lizard, not to mention something like that. So in our culture in Jamaica, there's this big fear for lizards.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. So I always tell people, I understand the fear, but all I'm asking you to do is respect. No harm but respect it. So in terms of the iguana now, as I always tell them, what makes it so special? Just remember, you know, in Jamaica, we, like when you check Africa, we don't have a lot of animals. This is one of our largest land animal, you know, which is, this iguana, you know, is only found in Jamaica and in the whole wide world. This is only found in one area in Jamaica. And we thought that it was extinct. And the world came here to assist in bringing back this species back to a normal population. We're not reached there yet, but the world came here. So I tell people, just look at it. This is Jamaican even more than me. Because remember, my ancestors were brought here, and we are now Jamaicans. These guys were here before. And,
wow.
And you need to respect them, you know? You don't have to like them, you know? You don't have to say them pretty. But just appreciate that this make our island extra special because it only live here. So if we remove this iguana, it won't be found nowhere else in the world, and the species will be gone. So I always try to tell people how to show the value, because even though I'm talking, half of Jamaica still don't know we have this iguana.
Yeah. But it's a powerful piece you're making. But is your case for the iguana about its uniqueness and its endemic nature, its indigenous, yeah,
Right.
nature to Jamaica, or is there a, and this is me now coming from the other side. I have another question about something. I was going to interrupt you a bit, and I have to come back to it. But yeah, why? Apart from its
being unique. All right. So there's
being
another.
unique, and that might be in itself a very, very strong point because it gives us some level of. But is there any other thing I could add to the list in order to say to my?
So, all right. So the next thing is the Hellshire Hills, where the iguana is found, is one of the is a part of one of the largest dry forests in this region right now.
Yeah.
Not Jamaica, but in the region. Dry forest that is intact. So we have a lot of plant species there. A number of endemics are found there.
Yeah.
So animals such as the iguana play an important role in the dispersal of seeds of plant, dispersal of seeds that grow into the plant that form this lovely forest. Even some plants that up to science we have not studied now. Some of these plants are critically endangered. So what normally happens is the iguana now eat some seeds that me and you would not eat. It goes through their stomach. Their acid break down some of the coating. It come out with some fertilizer on the seed. It drop and it grows like magic. If it never go through that process, then that seed will be there and it don't grow.
Wow.
So they play a vital role in spreading seeds, the dispersal of seeds in the forest. So they would be our natural farmers or planters of seeds. You can't put a cost to a process like that, you know. So
and it's a natural process.
And it's a natural process. And even some plants that we, okay, let me put it. We have plants there that we have no success of growing them in the lab, or growing them. We haven't worked out the mechanism of growing them artificially. So I mean,
there's a value, there's a key value there, a sustainable value as well to maintain their survival. But tell me something. We know that lizards aren't really dangerous, and I see you do a lot of work on the gala wasp and trying to bring some awareness that these are not going to. We don't have to. All the myths surrounding that, right? But are iguanas? Do they represent a danger to anyone?
Okay, so that's another myth that we have to work with. So because it's a big lizard, boy, you hear all kind of myth. Boy, it look like it do one thing. All right, thing with lizard is when you attack them, they open them out like that, and they do that to, you know, play bluff. It's just to do so you run.
Yeah.
Typically, when we out in the field working with iguanas, you go up there actually for months and you don't see iguana.
Wow.
They're very skittish, they're very shy. So as they see you, they're gone. So they are the only way that an iguana might harm you if you grab him the wrong way and he's trying to bite
Save
it to get out.
himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they won't run you down. They're very shy, very shy.
Okay.
So there's no threat. But people ask that question, you know. People ask, because even I'm talking about Goat Island, I remember talking to some community people, and they asked me, boy, Rooster, them are going to swim across the river, swim across the sea, come get with. And I was like, no, iguanas don't like, our iguanas don't like to swim and come across. They won't do that. But it's a good question. So as the public really sometimes don't have the information for these questions.
And that is the reason why I think part of the issue with the idea of endangered species, that one, people, I feel that people don't understand how their normal behavior can impact those species, so they see their own survival. I think, but so that's one thing. Goat Island. So part of your research is evaluating. You say your research is really looking at whether Goat Island would be an appropriate place, and as all the the environment for iguanas to maintain a sustainable life, without having to insert yourself into the process. You think, okay, let me have. But Goat Island is an area that has some level of controversy. As you mentioned, the base that was there, and recently in the news, it was on the table as well. Does that in any way intersect with what you're looking at doing in your research?
Not really, because the beautiful thing what happened is Goat Island have gone through so much, what I should say, proposed development, and all of that. The beautiful thing that occurred now is that the Prime Minister said that he deemed Great Goat Island to be a wildlife sanctuary. So that play hand in hand with my research. I know this wildlife sanctuary would provide a habitat for a lot of animals and even plants at the dry forest that are endangered. Yeah. So first you look at, another part that I didn't mention other than my PhD. When I was doing my PhD, I'm still doing it. But the first part, when I went on social media, I was trying to let people understand what I was doing. One, to make people know I'm just not having fun. Two, to help strengthen my support of getting grants. But in doing this now, I find out that a lot of people here do not know that we have special plants and animals.
Yes.
Or when we hear, or sometimes when I hear writing something, I say, yes, this is endemic. But sometimes people don't understand what I mean by endemic. So I have to break it down and say, only found here. So in part of doing that, I find out that we in Jamaica, and maybe even the wider Caribbean, haven't found a mechanism to break it down to our people, to let us know how much valuable stuff we have. Because when you have something that is only found here, I mean, there's a wealth of what can be done with it. For example, plants. Maybe our technology right now has not found out some of the medicinal properties, or maybe some other properties that our science have not reached, that some of these plants that are only found here might have. So when you go and get rid of these plants now, you lose all of that genetic wealth.
Yeah.
And that is something that I keep up, because every day I hear about some new medicine or something find out. You have a lot of people who visit even here looking for some of our endemic plants. Because what people don't know, wild plants, especially endemic, have special genes, which we might not see valuable here, but to our lab is very valuable.
Yeah.
So I believe that, and the next thing in adding to that, other than that wealth, I remember my grandfather mentioned to me that when somebody show a level of ownership to something, that is like a care, like when a man own a piece of land. So if me I tell a man to protect this area, protect it sound good on paper, but why should I protect it? Yeah. Him don't know why. I him say a green bush and two lizard. But now when you go down and tell him now, said this lizard, the galawas where you like, we have over 4 or 5 species. They are only found in Jamaica, right? and maybe they are only found in this one parish in the whole world. And this is the value that the Galawas do or what this plant. By understanding that now, he's empowered to care about it.
Yeah.
More than when
No,
you put it on a piece of paper and tell him, say, right. So I believe that we need to find ways of sharing the information.
No, I think and it's coming closer to the kind of reason why I was drawn to your work. But part of what I've noticed is how comfortable you are in transitioning from the biologist into an educator in terms of recognizing that certain terminologies and certain words might not be helpful, in terms of bringing people closer to an understanding. And as you're even explaining to me, I am realizing how unaware I am, or I was at least, because now I know a little bit more, about the nature of how our endemic species maybe contribute as well to those endemic plants that we have as well in terms of their interactions in that environment. But so as you're researching this, you also said something that drew my attention in the sense of, and it maybe is a separate question, because I'm wondering if we in Jamaica then, and you talk about the idea of people wanting to be doctors and lawyers, kind of like these kind of synthetic jobs. And in a sense, these are pigeonhole jobs because you kind of become doctor and that's what you do. But you have decided that at some point, one, maybe serendipitously, because maybe you wanted to be a doctor and everybody think you should be a doctor, but you end up in biology, which kind of give you a chance to research and find new knowledge. And so what one thought came to my head just now, and maybe you don't have an opinion on it, but I'm going to ask you if you have one, is are we producing too many doctors and not enough scientists? Like people who are going and looking at those plants and trying to find what we have unique and trying to figure out what can give us that advantage in the world. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I understand what you, and I can answer that question. I don't think we're producing enough doctors. We could be producing more doctors.
Okay.
On the other hand, we're not producing enough scientists. We have enough people to produce both. And let me straighten that point that you mentioned. I have a colleague here, Dr. Leo Douglas, who did, I don't remember if it's 4-year or 5-year assessment with some schools. Like before he had this program where he introduced them to environment and introduced them to the birds. So he talked to them. He did something before, in the middle, and at the end. And one of the most interesting findings I found out with that study is when he came up to what a scientist is to these school children. Would you believe that they believe a scientist is somebody white? Is a white person that is not local. And then, for example, he was there talking and he said that he's a science. But they said, boy, but you can't have a foreign accent.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about a number of these kids coming up, they did not see a lot of scientists like me, like one of us who talk like one of us, So it's because I do some outreach. I do a number of outreach at school and talking to them. When I go to school and talk about some study bird, they never know that. So what I'm trying to put to you is, when you ask a question, if we should be spending more time producing more scientists, there's a shortage of doctors and there's a hell of a shortage of scientists. And what's happening? Scientists are not popular here.
Yeah.
Are they not showcased? And let me try to tell you, part of how we are taught as scientists, and I have a number of colleagues, because sometimes I get a lot of hitbacks by doing social media. Because some of my colleagues would tell me, no, you're supposed to keep that in, everything must be published and that. I agree with publishing stuff. But I believe you might go out there and see doctors talking, but how much scientists are out there talking, right?
Yeah.
You have so much. You have people studying butterflies. You have microbiologists. You have so many different pharmacists, so much different profession. But who talking about it? And then one of the big problems that was happening too is that here, when you had some people who like had a biology degree, because I have a number of students that keep on reach out to me. When they look at the jobs they can get, a number of them can't get much job as a scientist. So sometimes they might have to just do teaching or yes, something they're not in the job that they're trained. So there's
lecturing
a
or change
short,
career at some point.
right? A number of people have changed. A number of people tell me every day, I see what you do. I love that excitement, but I couldn't find a job. So I
Wow.
mean,
Wow.
yeah. So
That's an
it's
opportunity then, isn't it? It's an opportunity for pharmaceuticals companies and stuff to get involved in, because you mentioned that many of these plants may be producing um, new cures that we aren't ourselves, and we own these plants because they're endemic to us, you
right.
know. So
And
there's an
then
opportunity there, and something is wrong in the middle of that. Do you think this is down to our education system?
I think our education system has to do with it in a way because if you look at it now, most of the companies now, based on with climate change or how times are changing, has to have an environmental professional somehow in their company. If you check it now, there are so many new job offerings happening versus like the last 10 years. I think in our education system, two things. We in our education system are taught to get a degree and go find a job. But part of finding that job, you have to take out some entrepreneurship skills. Can you get a biology degree? That don't mean say a job out there, sit down with your name. So you remember we talk about some of these medicinal stuff. So with some of these
Yeah,
kids with the entrepreneurial skill now, we have going and find a niche. We might argue now,
yeah,
so we need some policy to help them with some startup money for do some of this. But I mean, if some of these guys have some entrepreneurial skills, like teach them how that they don't have to go to the 9 to 5 job. Like, for example, most of the people who finish a degree, they look for jobs like at NEPA and some of the EIA firms. But there's only a few jobs you can get as a biologist there. However, when you check though, the range is so much um, of jobs that it could be done here. But sometimes you finish university, you don't have that experience, so you need a little push or a little, like a little direction. SRC, the Scientific Research Council, have a lot of projects out there, but not a lot of people taking it up. I am here talking to you in terms when you look at Jamaica and how much biologists we have. We're small, and you put it to the Caribbean. We don't. It's not a lot of us. I
yeah.
know most of the major biologists right now in Jamaica, and I know a number of the main ones in the Caribbean. It's a little bit of us. There's a
Wow.
room but we, in our educational system, we are not trained that way. And to face the new world coming, we have to find ways to maneuver. Because, for example, one of my skills that let me got a lot of jobs, even before I got mainstream job, was not my degree. It
Yeah,
was I learned how to identify birds. I learned how to identify. I could do bird tours. I could do part of EIA and all of that. And then my degree and masters build up my like understanding how to write a
yeah,
document and that. But all I always tell a lot of people, sometimes the job don't just come down like that, and you have to fight. But then if our educational system was set in a way too, but teach people entrepreneurial skills to show us, boy, you don't get that big job, but use your mind and you know how you can get this to work. There's
yeah, yeah.
there's so
So
many.
you
When I
see,
tell you
you
limitations,
see,
so many.
yeah. So you feel like there is a missing piece in the intersection between being a scientist or even some of these kind of so-called kind of back-end professions and entrepreneurship. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I see where you're going, because one of the biggest industry in the world is pharmaceuticals. They make so much money, but um, maybe we're missing a trick there, not realizing that our human capital can be pushed out. But so we're in the education system just now. You mentioned that you do a bit of outreach.
Mm-hmm.
If, for example, schools wanted someone like you to come in and talk to their kids, how possible is that for you to go in and try and, because as you said, the system doesn't do it, but your system, would you have problems doing that if you wanted to do that as against your
I
job? And
I
secondly,
do so much of that. I
yeah,
do so much of that, man. I mean,
in a
in
formal way, or is it
both
just
form,
people saying, come in and talk to me?
both formal and informal. So in
Yeah,
the formal way, you'd have schools that like like at my job where I work for the Urban Development Corporation, they had a competition, an environmental school competition. So we'd have going there from the beginning, the mid part, and end, give the kids a way to find an environmental project and then show out the program. However, that project kind of died.
Yeah.
And other things, you have schools now that call you, say they have an environmental program, or they hear you doing some bird watching and all of that. They would call you in. And then being a member of BirdLife Jamaica, schools always want to learn about birds.
Yeah.
So we have stuff like posters and it could be formalized more, as you can put it. But some of these schools like have environmental clubs. The thing that I talk about being formalized is few of us who are doing it.
Yeah, not enough.
Not enough. So because I might be on social media a lot, and I know the teachers or that might reach out to me and say, "Come help me with this or that." But what happened to the scientists who don't like go on social media, who up there?
Yeah.
But the thing is, just remember this too, you have some scientists who don't want to talk to anybody. They just want to lock up in their lab. So you just have to understand that this is a personality thing also. You have some people who does not in it. But I think the system could be formalized more because remember what I told you. If at that time Dr. Steele did not bring me some form of mentorship with BirdLife Jamaica, I would not be here.
So you're saying that even so, because you met Dr. Steele in university or at high school?
At university.
Okay, so at university, we know, because I went to the University of the West Indies, there are a number of people in natural sciences and will leave the university with a natural science degree in whether biology or whatever field. Let's forget whether they become doctors. That's the only thing that we could put a finger on. But people end up doing chemistry, and a lot of people study pure chemistry and pure biology and pure physics and that kind of thing. And then they branch off into wherever they like. Mm-hmm. So even at that level, you're saying that there's a missing, because I'm imagining this. Tell me how possible this is. And you're someone. We have university students. A formal system of them even going into schools and talking to kids about the opportunities in science beyond being a doctor, just being a formal part of the system. Is that something, when I speak about formal, I'm thinking about it being integrated in the system in such a way that your situation isn't a lucky one, like just a chance kind of relationship established between Dr. Steele but more like if we're doing things. And I'm just wondering if that's something that, well, one, clearly it isn't happening as you're saying, but two, what impact that may have on even the kind of stuff that you want people to be aware of.
All right, back to White. So in a way, the faculty was doing something similar to that. The fund got cut. So basically what they used to do, and I was a part of it, maybe that kind of helped create the person that time. That once a year, they used to have these fairs that they would go to a number of the high schools, especially in the rural areas. And you'll have different representatives from the different departments talking to the kids. So you have a chemistry student, you have a math student, and everybody tell people the different options. It was working good. The following year, the faculty got an increase. However, it goes back to the same problem that you mentioned. It was a university who get up and that was doing it. But then you might ask yourself the question, how much are the schools overall got this? It was basically based on the draw of the dice that I went to your school. Yeah. So you go to the major parish, and chances are again the top high school they're going to come to your stuff and some others. But some of the other schools that need the help, that really need the help, sometimes they don't have it. So in terms of when you mention about more formalizing the system now, that every school would get this equal chance. To tell you the truth,
we need biology. We need biologists at the Ministry of Education sitting at the table looking at how the curriculum is structured, isn't it? So that these are not like add-ons, like the way it is treated sometimes, these kind of stuff, they're treated as if, like you buy a bicycle and you put a reflector on it. So it's not fundamental to the functioning of the bicycle. You just make it look pretty, or or you put on some colors on it and some stickers on it. What I'm trying to, based on what you're saying to me, and just coming back to your conversation about the iguana and the lack of awareness that we have about the role that they play in keeping Jamaica and maintaining our uniqueness, we don't know. But if we only know through, like a one-day visit, which normally it won't focus on those things, it might focus on careers, we need to find ways of getting that information. And social media, as you mentioned, is a tool, but not everybody is on social media. Not everybody share what they find on social media. You mentioned also scientists being a bit shy. It's just like you mentioned your iguanas being shy. But in a sense, they have a responsibility as well to be seeing themselves as saying, telling young children. I can see a lot of potential in that direction, though, in terms of getting more entrepreneurs coming into science, because a lot of entrepreneurs don't choose science because they think they have to be doctors. They don't realize that they could come into science and start a pharmaceutical company. They're thinking, a foreign company will create a company and then we work there. That's Jamaica that's what I'm kind of getting. And I'm trying to, from your conversation, use the term entrepreneurship, and it really fascinates me, because here's the thing. You are someone who has broken the mold in some ways of what we would say the traditional scientists may want to do, that kind of confidence to come into the space and say, I'll have a go at this. But the other part of it is that it's clear that the missing piece in this is that we are not taught to see what we do as important, to share. We kind of think just get on with the job. I have a few questions to get to the end of this. I think it's a fascinating interview. There's a lot. You're really an interested person. You're just sparking a lot of thinking about projects that could be. Maybe I think coming to that, you mentioned two things just before I move into my question. You mentioned the wildlife reserve that the government has pledged, not the government has pledged, the Prime Minister has pledged. I can see the need for that to become legislation and not necessarily just words, and real tight legislation that includes. But that's one thing that I could see happening from that. And likewise in the education system, I see this becoming more important. Let me ask you something. I'm coming towards the end now, and I need to just get your thoughts on this, because you started to do these things during the time that we were locked down. Right? That's the first time I noticed what was going on with you. I think in COVID time. And so it's clear that COVID has opened the door for all of us to kind of be a little bit more, willing to go out there and do these things. But my question to you is, and I'm going to put that on the screen because I really wanted to begin to zero in. What have you learned about yourself during the pandemic?
Wow. Oh, that's the one that nearly boiled me. But one of the things that I learned about myself is let me put it this way. I normally have a problem doing public speaking or even interview. And sometimes even writing, I had this fear of making mistakes and that people would ridicule me for the mistakes. And then I find out that the fear was in my head. If I make a mistake, I'm human. COVID, by doing a lot of talking, a lot of stuff like this, have taught me to live with my limitations. Yeah. Which I can tell you at first, it was like one of the biggest, scariest things for me. Even though I'm still writing, I'm writing my thesis, and sometimes I write something and I doubt myself because, boy, this not sound good, or somebody I got laugh at it. I remember even applying for a scholarship where I got to go to Germany. At the time, I said, boy, there's no way I would win this scholarship. So what I learned what I've learned, especially now about myself, is that anything where I put my mind to, I can do it. That I have to learn to live with my limitations. You're good to know it, but you can work on it, but don't let the fear get to you. You can't do anything. Don't let that fear get to you. I think that's one of the things that have hit me.
Yeah. And the funny part of that, Damion, is that people seeing you would never have felt like you would have had that fear.
I'm shy, and people wouldn't believe that. I'm very shy, but I've done stuff to overcome it.
Yeah. And that's a good message for young ones as well, to realize that sometimes our fears are bigger than the situations that we actually are encountering. So I'm throwing another question your way. I'm throwing another question your way. So that one, thank you for that one. Everyone is learning through the pandemic, and that kind of reflective nature is powerful. So my next question to you is around being a biologist. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Yeah, man. What advice would you give someone who wanted to pursue a career similar to yours?
Yes.
Woo. Well, one of the stuff I learned early in this career, I remembered a lot. I think mentorship is one of the most important things in this career or maybe any other career. You have some opportunities where you might have visiting scientists or in maybe even an area that you don't have much idea or experience. If you come, take the opportunity and go.
Yeah.
You don't know what you will learn. I found myself earlier in it when whatever scientists going out, you have botanists who came down, you have cave guy, you have bat expert, you have camera person. I was out there. I had no clue with some of these stuff. But guess what? Going out with different people. One, I learned new technology. I got comfortable learning scientific techniques. And guess what? The biggest one is network. You're not going to survive with this thing without networking. And meaning network, when people know what you do, when people know you, you get a chance, you get help. And the last advice I would give somebody, we have this Jamaican saying that said, humble calf suck the most milk. Maybe that was maybe 100 years ago. It ain't that nowadays. And what I mean, I don't mean say you show off. If you don't showcase the work that you do, who's going to showcase it for you? So if you're doing research, if you're doing that, find some way to let people know. So if it's not even social media, if it's to write an article, if it's to go to a school, if it's to write a paper, do something to showcase, because you know what might happen is you have all of this knowledge, all of this work, and nobody knows. And then you get look and said, oh, this person who is less qualified than you, who in Jamaican sense and say, fool, and not have no sense, get that job over you. Because you sat down there with this stuff. I'm not saying go show off, and show it in people's face, but take the initiative to showcase who you are, where you stand for, and the work. And to close it all, my supervisor always tell me, everybody must have something them stand for, where you believe in, and make that pretty clear.
Yes. Well, it is very important. So I have two final questions, and I want to speak a little bit about, just to finish this off, about how passionate you are about the critical endangered species in Jamaica. Just a quick, and if you can list maybe just a quick few of them that you feel like you just want people to be aware of. But just about your passion about this. I know that you speak about it, but I think people need to feel that as well.
My passion about critical endangered is shocking. When something is critically endangered, mean any moment this no longer exists on this earth. Today I was in this area called Ari Savannah, looking for this. We have a fern. The interesting thing about this fern, it's aquatic. Now, Ari Savannah is what we'd call one of the driest places in Jamaica. So sometime during the year, rainfall in these ponds, and this aquatic fern grows in these ponds, and then as it dry up, it die and is placed on a dust mound. This fern is only found in about 3 ponds in this area in the whole wide world. Not say Jamaica, So go Jamaica, narrow down to this small area, right? Anything where we do as humans, if we go do development, if we go dig it up, this plant is no longer there. You might ask me the question, what's the value of this plant? We don't know. But not knowing the potential is way up there. We don't know. We don't know how to breed it. So, and we have a number of other stuff like that in Jamaica. We have like the iguana that I mentioned. If we stop conservation work, it's gone. And we have another one over there. We're finding another critical endangered one, a wild cherry, Malpighia proctori. One plant we found in Hershey Hills, that big place, and we found a few in this area. When I came out of the area today, you know what hit me? None of the locals, the community where they're near the place, know anything about any other plant. The guy who was like the bush doctor in the area who find medicinal plant had no clue. And then I sat down there in my vehicle and said, as a conservationist, are we doing a good job? Go as a visiting scientist, feel good. Yeah, man, put this on it, IUC, and we recommend this as that. But guess what? The people growing up right beside, not even a mile bit down,
and don't realize
the value. Yeah,
because they grew up around these plants that they think is everywhere. I think that's what's happening, and they grew up around these animals that they think is everywhere. And so, you know, you keep coming back to that, and you really have me thinking, Damion, because, and I hope that somebody who is able to make that kind of decision realize the importance of getting people like you in front of students, but not on a career day, but as part of the curriculum, like a part of the learning, that it becomes a natural, just as much as what you say, it's natural for Jamaicans to go, want to be a doctor and be a lawyer. You want them to feel the same about being a biologist or a conservationist. But not only that, also feel that it's a responsible thing to do, because you mentioned these people in the local areas, the lack of knowledge, you know. I wonder if there's a lot of work that could be done as well in signage, you know, going around and putting signs and things and let people realize the uniqueness of their life. Like, here in this village is the only place in the world you can see these things. Because people, I used to remember as a child, I used to be proud of maybe the one thing that was in my community, but we knew of it. Like, we had a market that was like 150 years old, and we had a church, and I was so proud to know that we had these structures, but we knew that because we were told that, and those signs were on it to say 1690 something or whatever. So there's work to be done, right?
Yes, man. And it go back to the same point where you're saying, you remember me start off by say put the value to the something, and just one quick point I want to mention to you. When I was in 5th form, I remember a guidance counselor looked at my mother and tell me, said, why? Guidance counselor said, maybe nobody waste no time for sending him to university.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you, so that's another problem, but maybe another time we have discussion with, that you might have some kids at the high school, at the school, that are a bit energetic and all of that, but we haven't found a way to get to them, right? You might tell, I remember that same person tell me, maybe 2 friends of mine, one now is a head pharmacist, and we're having this reunion talk. And I tell you, you know, even to this day, you know, that talk or that lady tell me, you know, I have it now, you know. Remember when I get my first degree, remember when I get my master's degree, remember. I remember when I get my PhD, remember. Say, don't look for nobody picnic and tell them what they might become, because you don't know. Yeah. And the reason why I'm adding this to it, you see the part that we mentioned with this educational thing? Everybody have a potential. Some of us are late bloomers. Or some of us, the way how you deal with us at the school. As what you mentioned before, I go out with some kids, some boy where I get beer trouble. And when I carry them with me, I tell them, go lift up that rock, come here, go look for that spider, I look for that. Totally changed, man. It's like in mind, oh, something moving. So all I'm saying, back to what you're saying, we have to, I don't want to digress with that, but that when you mention something with the school, it brings back that memory.
Yeah. We're missing a link.
Yeah, missing a link. But the point we mentioned with the community, and it's something that I agree with you. When a community value what they have, they will protect it. We need more people, and one of the final things I want to, what I learned on social media is that we still have some people in the education and even the environmental movement who still believe in this pamphlet business with wallpaper writing, when nobody reads. We have creative generation coming. They have to find ways of communicating and bridging. And that's it, social media, whatever it is, come up with it, and you'll reach these people, right? I know, in my view, and I'm confident that if we put more energy in the community, especially with protecting species, and I tell my colleagues this from the scientific world, don't go into a community, go only look on the species. Because if you're going there for just study this iguana, it won't work. You have to work with the community to help protect the iguana. So don't just look for, if you're going in there to just work on the iguana, failure. Because the
you're not
people
going to build the
has to know.
relationships. You're not going to build the relationships
You're not
that
gonna build a
allow the
relation.
iguana to
And they live
survive.
there, you know. Me come one day, they live there. They know, they have more experience than me.
I remember when I was in grade 6, we had a project to do for our community. And we were supposed to go and find like 10 plants that were in our community. And, it was plants. I think it was only plants like that you would find in, and I was from Anatolia. So we would find 10 plants and you do this, you get your folder jacket and you put it in, you set it up nicely and present it back as a project. But I think, what I think, but that's a nice project. But I think I find what is missing was a connection that to our roles as beneficiaries of the environment and how we need to protect. So while we were taught that, I never remembered it taught in a context as a role that we can play in protecting the environment and conserving the environment and sustaining the environment. It was more like, go and find this, submit it, and you get 90 out of 100. But I know for a fact we never moved to the next level of it, which is really where people like you want the conversation to go. Like, can we all be, protectors of the environment? Can we all, children just growing up and feeling like shooting a bird and don't understand the connection between that bird and pesticide control? These are the kind of things that are missing from the conversation. Or someone taking a cat in a boat and drop them off into an island and not recognizing the impact.
I just let them go like what some people do. Yes.
Exactly. So what you're showing in this conversation is that there is a need for not only knowledge but understanding of how the environment works. Some people may think it's a separate thing, but they themselves, when you're cutting a highway through, it may cause a problem. So when you hear the environment and they say, calm down, you might be stopping Jamaica from setting by removing an endemic species that may have given the kind of financial investment after it becomes a cure for something to preserve the future. So we have to be very, very cautious. All right. So Damion, we could go on forever. You are.
Yes, I know.
Fascinating guest. But I wanted to summarize those things that we talked about, because I think if anyone who is in education is looking at this, they may be thinking, you know what? I wonder if I could get Damion to come into my school. But not only that, is it possible for Damion to come and work on a project or even work as part of our curriculum, just to come in and know that they have this connection? Because with social media, you don't physically have to be in the school anymore. You could literally launch an educational program about it, and schools just sign in because all the kids have laptops or have access to the internet now because of the pandemic.
COVID,
because of COVID. So, there's an opportunity there, and I would want to know that this develops into something powerful, more than like really getting into the system. But my question to you, because you're on social media, where can our listeners connect with you online? And this is a chance for me to put your stuff running on the screen so that
Well, the first one, if you're on Twitter, it would be Roosters World. That's ROOSTR World, WORLD. Wait, just let me check something. Right, so that's the one on Twitter. I have a lot of people who always come on Twitter to just ask me questions, and that's where a number of scientists who like to use it. I think I'm missing out. Sorry. At the Roosters, there's an underscore world. Sorry. Roosters. Right. So you can find me on Roosters World, or you can find me at Damion Rooster Whyte on Facebook. I'm also on IG.
Rooster Whyte.
Yeah. On Facebook.
Yeah.
And then the final one is on IG that some people use too. I just use everything to get on IG. I am the same Roosters underscore world, but there's a one on it. I'm trying to get everything to be one, but when I have the name Rooster World, because I get popular, a number of people just take it.
Start taking it up.
Yeah, so I have to go find a new way and put it. But any one of them you can find me. And what I
Yeah,
do
you have
on
an
this.
email if schools
Oh,
want to
sorry.
reach
My
you?
email is, the email is easy. DL_Whyte, WHYTE @yahoo.com. You can
Okay.
email me, and I help a lot of people with when they find something new, any problems with nature, or to link up with other scientists. I am a bridge because I know most of the scientific scientists, so I can link you there. Or anything with the school or any environment problems, I'm there.
Yeah. So there you have it, guys. Twitter, roosters_world. Or if you go on Facebook, you can type in Damion Rooster Whyte. IG Roosters World 1. And if you want to get him at email, DL_Whyte. The details are running on the screen. And as I said, Damion, this was a fascinating interview. Out of this interview, I'm going to tell you what I've learned. I've learned a lot about how, as a normal citizen, I can contribute to the conservation of the endemic species in Jamaica. As just a normal person going to my day-to-day life, I don't have to become an environmentalist. I don't have to become a conservationist. I don't have to become a scientist. I just realize that if I begin to understand that, little things can impact, as you mentioned, the cat killing the hatchlings, and you would never believe that the two are connected, but they are. And you mentioned the people cutting down the wood for the coal and all that. It creates an impact on the environment and so on. So I've learned so much. But what I've taken away from this is that, we're not entrepreneurial enough. We're maybe holding back some kids because they think the only thing in science is becoming a doctor. We're not allowing that to happen. We certainly aren't letting people realize the value and the nature of the flora and the fauna that they have around them, and the benefits that can bring to make them become more proud of their community. So we know that there's an outreach piece that needs to be done. We know that there's a curriculum piece that needs to be done. But as I said, we could go on forever. Yeah, man, you've shared a lot, But hopefully anyone who's watching this will know that Damion is a person I can reach out to. I certainly would love to have you in front of my students, talking to them and telling them and sharing that passion. So that's shown through. The boy from down in Clarendon,
Clarendon, yeah, man. Country
growing
boy.
up in Martin and all of that, Yes, nice to meet you, Damon, and thanks for coming on the panel.
Nice to meet you, and I enjoyed this discussion because you just bring back some good memories too, and you give me some food for thoughts here, especially how the conversation was evolving, our role and how we get to with the school. Good questions. I enjoyed myself.
Yeah, man, and good luck on your PhD. When you tell us when do you hope to become
this year? My supervisor on me like, wow. So this
get
year.
on with it, man. Get on with it. I can tell you that when I finished mine, the one thing I remember as the most significant part of it was, and I always say press send. And I remember sending my first draft of my entire actually no, the first draft of the proposal. I remember the day I sent the first draft of the proposal, I knew I was going to finish, because after that I was going with guidance, And I remember sending the first draft of the final dissertation, and I knew that was it. Even if it took me another 6 months to finish all the edits and reviews, I was going to get there. So if you're spending time on the final one, don't worry about the final. Send the draft. And say, this is what I have. And don't hesitate on it. And then, it happens after that, because then you get the guidance of your supervisor, So that is powerful, Damion. Looking forward to you joining that community and continue to contribute, because people like you are what the world needs, and environment is a big thing. We could have spent more time talking about this SDGs and how those should be part of the curriculum, but that's another conversation. And perhaps I will invite you on a conversation with a few other environmentalists to kind of explore that a little bit. But thanks for coming on.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed myself.
Yeah, all right. At some point, thank you very much. And I'm going to close there. Thank you very much. There you have it, guys. Damion Whyte joining us on the panel.